The following is a presentation of TFNN.
Sometimes I get a good feeling, yeah. I get a feeling that I never had before. No, I get a good feeling, yeah.
Namaste, everybody, and welcome to Mindful Living, where we want to help you get healthy, feel good, and live life to the fullest every single day. And today's show is all about the health and healing benefits of yoga. Tom and I are so excited to introduce our guest today, Greg Nardi, who is an international yoga expert traveling the world teaching yoga, as well as an authorized Ashtanga yoga teacher. Greg, welcome to the show.
Hi, good to see you guys.
You too. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for coming. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. So we can't wait to dive into the benefits of yoga and talk all about it, because I know a lot of our listeners are excited about this conversation today. But in Mindful Living tradition, we have to take our shot, our power shot first. So raise your glasses, and as my husband is in Dominican Republic today, we're going to say salud, which means to your health.
To your health.
So you guys go ahead and go first and let me know what you taste.
What do we have?
What do we got here?
Go ahead and take the shot and tell me what you think, what you're tasting. Tasting
beets.
Oh, wow.
Oh, beets are good for you.
Really? You both got beets. That's pretty good.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's carrots, apple, celery, beets, and parsley, and it's called a cleansing cocktail.
Delicious.
It's
Yeah.
going to make our cheeks nice and rosy.
So I want to say that yoga has been experiencing explosive growth for the last 10, 15 years, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down.
No, for sure.
So let's dive into some of the benefits you're seeing people receiving through this practice.
Okay.
I'll take my shot.
Definitely health benefits. I think that's the number one thing people come looking for, some sort of fitness. It seems like more and more, I've been practicing this since 1996, and so I've seen it become more and more mainstream. And what I'm starting to see, the nice thing is that doctors recommending to patients who are having back pain or different issues in their body to start practicing yoga to help control their health, to help get their health back and that kind of thing. So really wonderful stuff. Yeah.
Let's talk about the physical benefits. Dive into more specifics there. One of the myths I want to dispel first and foremost, particularly when I'm speaking with men, I'll say is, I could never do yoga because I'm not flexible enough. So I think a lot of people have this idea that yoga is all about just getting flexible. What are your thoughts on that?
Right. Well, number one, I don't ever think that's a good reason not to do yoga, because how are you going to get flexible if you don't do some sort of flexibility training? But that being said, I don't think that yoga is really about flexibility training. One of the things that I've been saying to my students a lot lately, because everybody is really concerned about getting more flexible and being able to do these poses, my teacher never talked about flexibility as a goal for yoga practice. He always talked about strength. He always talked about integrity in the body, right? And so what I try to help people to understand is it's a mindfulness practice. This is really about you're using these different asanas, these different body positions, and using your body in all these different ways so that you can learn about the optimal way for your body to exist. And so we want to start not just performing these like any other exercise, but it's really the mindfulness component, being able to be aware of your body as it goes through the different movements, to start to feel good connections in your body. Yoga feels good when done right. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, that's an important note there. Note
what's amazing is that, and I haven't been doing it that long. I did it with Allie 8 years ago, and I did it for, about 9 months a year. And then I didn't do it for like 7 or 8 years. And I remember saying, I could never not stop this. 7 or 8 years ago, and I did. I'll never not stop it again, but I won't. But what I always found interesting is that what you're talking about with the flexibility, and that you feel like you have to do something. I never felt like I had to do anything, even in those classes, because I'd look at you guys and say, "Man, that's going to be years before I could do that." And inside that context, I don't think it made any difference in my own head. So it's kind of interesting in the context, because I got the. I only start getting the opening up aspect of it about 6 or 8 weeks ago. I could actually feel my chest opening up, and I always heard it. You know what I mean? Now that's like in about 7 months, and it feels great. I mean, that when you pull it back, it's like, oh, now I know what that means.
Yeah.
Because the concept of what opening up even means, I think for someone that just starting it is different. Like, what does that mean? What does it mean when your body opens up? Now I finally say, oh, I see what that means.
That's right.
And that gets exciting.
Yeah.
You know, because you realize that, okay, hold it, something is happening.
Yeah.
And I think it's all relative too, right? I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. You didn't have any expectations coming into this, but what do you see with that in yoga class? Do you see people really pushing themselves or expecting themselves to be able to do certain things?
Yeah, traditionally yoga was always taught teacher to student. And so, the teacher would sort of give the student a practice, and so they didn't really have a lot to compare it to. And what's happened now is, we could look historically how yoga has changed in modern times. We've got photography, we've got videos, we've got books, we've got group classes, and so this idea of comparing yourself to other people's or trying to look like an image in a book or what's happening on a video has become prevalent in the practice, and that's where we start to lose that mindful ability to really feel what's going on in our own body.
Right.
It's not a competition. This is not a competitive sport. Right. It's a practice about getting in touch with yourself, finding where your abilities are.
Yeah.
For sure.
You know what's funny? What he's saying now check this out.
Yeah.
This is crazy, folks, okay? So last night, I'm on Greg's site. Now, Greg's site, folks, is AstrangaYogaWorldwide.com. So I'm on your site, and I'm watching your videos, right? And I'm saying, oh, I'm going to be able to do that down dog like that. Because, no, I saw two different things. No, I really did. You know what I mean? How you're coming up like that, and your hands got to go different. And then how you actually come down. I'm saying to myself, man, okay. I was digging it, though. But it's funny how your head, turns
Yeah, you
around.
go there, right?
You do. You do. I definitely went there.
Yeah, and I think that's what happens is people get intimidated then to walk into a class, right? When we look, of course, if we're running a yoga studio, we've got to market it. We've got to put out a flyer, a website, and this kind of stuff. And people look at that and they're like, well, I can't do that. I'll never be able to do that. It's not the point. The point is that you do what you can do, right?
Yeah.
I think that's such an interesting point to talk about the intimidation factor. And, I'd like to talk a little bit more about men coming back to yoga because in the history of yoga, it was designed or created by men, for men, right, for a long time?
For sure. I mean, there have been women practitioners, but the majority of it was a male-centered practice.
Yeah. And now it's mostly women. Is that what you find in the yoga room?
Mostly, yeah.
So what do you think that change has happened?
Well, I think that had to do with when yoga came from India to America and who were the people who first started to practice it. So, it does require flexibility. It seems as though, it's more gymnastic type of movements, and it just was picked up by women.
Yeah, okay. So I want to get more men back on their yoga mats because we can all benefit so much, from the practice. What would you say to the guys out there listening?
Do it, number one, but you'd be surprised, actually. I've had a lot of sports figures that I've taught over the years, and, people who are very muscular, and they think that they're going to come in and get like an easy ride, like, oh, that's for women, it'll be easy. Usually their girlfriends drag them in or something like that.
Yes.
And within 5 minutes, they're pouring sweat, and they're like, can't believe how intense it is, you know? So I think that, more men should practice yoga. What yoga does is, of course it doesn't work on the larger muscles, but it gives a lot of integrity in the skeletal muscles of the body, so it builds a real deep internal strength, which, again, relieves all sorts of, physical ailments in the body, supports joint health, and all this kind of stuff.
Talk more about the sweat. I think a lot of people might be surprised that yoga can build such a sweat.
According to my teacher, Patabi Joyce, he was the founder of the Ashtanga Yoga method. He said that the sweat was crucial to the practice. What we do is we actually move our body pretty consistently for about 90 minutes. And what he would say is we boil the blood. That was his metaphor for it. We heat our blood, and then the sweat is the toxins coming out of our body, right? So the sweat is a very, very important part of the practice. As we know, we hear all the time in articles now about sort of how many toxins are in our environment.
No doubt.
And, so we're in this constant need of detoxification. I think everybody needs to sweat at least once a day. In Florida, maybe that's not so hard.
No, but it's a huge point because, I've seen the difference. And I like the deal if the sweat is coming up. But here, so watch. if I'm doing good, meaning I'm going to yoga versus going out, okay, I'm doing good. But no, this is a fact. Let's say, I've been out 2 or 3 days or whatever. Do you know what I mean? What ends up happening is that there's so many toxins inside the system, it won't sweat at first.
Yeah.
And that's a trip, because you can do it the first day and it won't sweat. And the second day it comes out and says, "Thank you, God." You know what I mean? No, but it really does. And I realized that. I said, "Oh, this is dangerous." When it can't come out. And that's what that is. Whether it's food or drink or whatever you're putting in that system to stop your cells from really going.
Yeah, and you want to know what? As you are practicing longer, the quality of your sweat actually changes. I mean, I don't know, we're talking about sweat a lot, but it goes from...
It's living.
Yeah, it's living. But your sweat actually takes on a more lighter and a more viscous quality. And my teacher used to say, actually, at the end of your practice, after you've gotten the toxins out in the initial sweat, that the sweat has beneficial hormones in it that should be rubbed back into the skin, right? So he's saying that the quality of your sweat actually changes over time. Right. So where it becomes toxic in the beginning, it actually becomes helpful at the end.
That is so cool.
Purifying.
You're purifying, yeah.
When it first started with all men, does anyone know how it first started?
Well, it's got, an ancient history, and it's kind of, this is a big topic in academia right now, is where does it start and how old is it really? Some people like to draw a line back to the 5,000 years to the Indus Valley Saraswati civilization. Modern yoga, it seems as though, has obviously innovated and changed over time. We know that something happened in Mysore, South India, where there was sort of the beginning of this renaissance of modern yoga practice. And at that time, what was happening was India was heading towards independence. And so they were looking towards traditional forms to really sort of reinvigorate people's identity.
Yes.
And part of that was building up physical fitness. And so they started to look towards yoga and things like this, and they were teaching it in the school systems. My teacher's teacher was named Krishnamacharya, and he was sort of the professor of yoga at in Mysore. And my teacher was his student. And so it was a bunch of young guys who did this very physically athletic kind of gymnastic style yoga.
Yes.
And it kind of went from there.
Yeah. Next thing you know, it's here.
And then, and then here it is.
And so the aspect in Ashtanga yoga with the poses, they're all the same poses. And that's where they just made that at that point?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's a kind of a debate.
Okay.
My teacher always said that this system of yoga came from a book called the Yoga Karunta.
Yes.
Which is an ancient book that was written on palm leaves. The problem is that he says it's been eaten by ants.
I love it.
And nobody really has seen it. And so we don't know exactly where the system came from. It's a plausible story because if you go to India, there are tons of ancient manuscripts are actually disintegrating as we speak. We're losing so much information.
I'm going to look at ants differently from now on.
Yeah, that's right.
Those anthills are going to totally look different.
That's right. And so, but what I actually oftentimes teach my students is that I think that this debate isn't so very important, trying to figure out exactly where it came from. One of my Indian teachers said, in the West, you guys are very concerned or very interested in what's old. He said, in India, we're very interested in what's effective, right? And so what matters to me is that thousands of people all around the world are doing this practice and getting tremendous benefit and great results from it.
You mentioned Krishnamacharya in his book, Health, Healing, and Beyond. There was a quote that said he believed yoga was India's greatest gift to the world. And one of the things you talked about was the mindfulness aspect of it and bringing the mind into the practice. I mean, we know there are immense physical benefits. You mentioned the spine, the purifying sweat, strength, flexibility. Talk more about the mindfulness aspect of it. The ultimate goal.
Sure. To me, that's kind of where it's at. So, I think of this practice is, if we think about Ashtanga yoga, it's got three aspects to it. It's got a part for the body, it's got a part where we focus on the breath, and then it's got a part for the mind.
Here, we're going to come right back to talk more about that. Folks, call in if you have questions for Greg. For the first caller, we've got a 5-class pass giveaway to White Orchid Yoga here in Clearwater. Stay there. We'll be right back.
In quiet markets, investors search for new trading opportunities. We'd like to introduce you to a new product that provides opportunities even in flat markets. Nadex, the North American Derivatives Exchange, is a new and innovative Chicago-based exchange registered with the Commodity Futures Trading Commission, and unlike most other exchanges, Nadex allows you to trade directly through them with direct market access when using their trading platform. Nadex never charges a fee to use their platform, which even includes real-time charts and full customization capability. Nadex's unique short-term binary options allow traders and investors to capitalize on strategies even when the underlying markets are quiet. Nadex's innovation has allowed them to come up with a line of unique trading products that are unavailable anywhere else. See how it works at nadex.com. That's NADEX.com, or click on the Nadex banner on the front page of TFNN.com. Futures and options trading involves risk and may not be appropriate for all investors.
No matter where you listen to TFNN programming, we want you to know you can always access your favorite shows on demand through TFNN.com. TFNN airs live programming every market day from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m. Eastern, and you can view each program by accessing Tiger TV through our homepage. We even have an easy link for all mobile devices, including iPhones and iPads, located at the top right-hand corner of the TFNN homepage. You can use your smartphone to view Tiger TV, but if you don't have a mobile connection that can keep up with streaming live video, then you can simply visit TFNN.mobi in the browser of your smartphone for live streaming audio of all of our programs. The mission of TFNN is to educate our audience directly and interactively through our interactive website and radio call and talk shows. TFNN is able to teach all levels of investors the technical skills needed to trade in today's marketplace. In order to get the best information possible, TFNN has assembled the most respected financial minds in the country to provide the most current news and comprehensive advice available. TFNN.com. Educating investors. Yesterday's gone. Tomorrow's not here. What are you doing right now? Mindful Living with Allie Ford and Tom O'Brien.
Sometimes I get a good feeling, yeah. I get a feeling that I never had before. No, I get a good feeling, yeah.
Out about it.
Welcome back, folks. We're here with the international yoga expert and authorized Ashtanga yoga teacher, Greg Nardi. And Greg, you were just going to get into really the ultimate goal of what yoga is.
Yeah, so I think I was saying that we have, when we do this Ashtanga yoga method, there's three aspects to it. There's a part for the body, a part for the breath, and a part for the mind. And really, when we talk about the breath in India or in the East, they have a lot of language about what's called our energy body, our energetic body. We don't have a lot of language around that in the West, unfortunately. But this is like what we tap into when we're doing acupuncture and Ayurvedic massage and these types of things. So when we do yoga, we're working with all those three aspects of our being, and we're trying to bring them into harmony with each other. I think one of the challenges that has come about in Western yoga is a real intense focus on the physical aspect of it.
Right.
But what we're intended to do in Ashtanga yoga is not only go through a pretty intense series of movements, but also we want to maintain a certain breathing technique, and actually I think the breath should be primary, more important than the ability in the asanas or the postures. And then we're also given a technique to focus on the mind. We're actually given 9 specific gazing points, and all 3 of those, when taken together in balance, really create the practice of Ashtanga yoga. What happens, they found that the brain really can't hold more than 3 bits of information at any given time. Right? And so if we give ourselves these 3 kind of points of focus, what we call the Trishtana method, it has an effect on the mind where all of a sudden, I've had this kind of experience, and I think a lot of practitioners have had this, where kind of time begins to stop, what athletes might call being in the zone, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're just kind of feeling it, you're in it, it's a moving meditation, and it's not really, all of the other concerns about trying to get it right, trying to be better than somebody else, am I flexible enough, and all those kind of trips that we play on ourselves, they just have this way of going away.
Yeah.
To me, that's really yoga. It's not the achievement of any particular thing, it's about being really present in the moment.
Yeah. It's so cool. There's so much science behind it. That's the thing too. A lot of people that I talk to, how did they know, or how do yogis know that this posture heals the liver, or this posture is good for the spine? And while much about yoga and meditation is now being scientifically studied and proven, this has been around for thousands of years.
Yeah, that is amazing.
Yeah. So they did their own experiments with it.
Right.
That's right.
They were their own best experiments.
That's right, yeah. And we oftentimes hear people talk about the science of yoga, and, I think what that's saying is that it is a very systematic approach or methodology. So this isn't just kind of, going out there and doing whatever you want, but we're following a very clear method that has a very specific result.
Right.
And what I have found is with practicing with mindfulness that you begin to have more awareness of your own body.
Right.
It's amazing to me how we all exist in this body. We all walk around with the body, and how little attention
we don't
pay
know
to
about
it.
it. Yeah, I know. Seriously.
It's like, to me, it's like, we've been given this body. Yoga's sort of the user's manual that nobody ever gave us.
No, that's a fact.
Yeah.
I mean,
Become really aware, and you start to listen to the language of your body through this practice. And I love that we're getting into Ashtanga yoga now, because really that's your expertise. This is the method that you yourself practice. It's the method you have studied for years. You've been teaching for how long now?
Almost as long as I've been practicing, but probably about 16 years.
16 years.
Amazing.
And I think a lot of people have questions about, gosh, there's so many styles of yoga. Which one should I start with? How do I know what's best for me? Who would you say Ashtanga yoga is best for?
I think, my teacher would say anybody can do Ashtanga yoga, right? The question is sort of how do we do it? So Ashtanga yoga is a very specific sequence of asanas, as Tom said. We do the same postures every time in a very particular way. But to me, what it is an ideal form of practice. It's very challenging, and so it's meant to be learned gradually, and we're meant to do it in a way that's sort of appropriate for the individual, right?
Yeah.
And so as long as it's done that way, as long as it's done in a way that's appropriate and learned gradually over time, I really think anybody can do it.
And that word gradually is probably one of the toughest words for Westerners to process.
Yeah, right? We live in an immediate culture.
Impatience, and the strive to get things done.
What's so cool here is that coming from just getting into it, right? And talking with both of you, and the aspect inside the community is you guys and ladies must have seen so many people basically just go crazy trying to do poses because I'm kidding, because it's talked about a lot, and every single time I look at them and say, well, why do you have to do it by tomorrow? So it's interesting always hearing it, because it's like, because I agree, there's not a reason to be an expert tomorrow.
Yeah,
none of us are going to be an expert forever.
And as a matter of fact, there was a book written, or an article written in the New York Times about how yoga wrecks your body, and we're starting to hear some of this stuff. Unfortunately, as yoga is becoming more popular, we're kind of starting to see people getting some injuries and things like that. And I think that has everything to do with whether people are practicing mindfully or not.
Yes.
I think as it's growing, people are sort of starting to focus just on that physical aspect and that immediate gratification, forgetting that there's a whole tradition and a context that it's supposed to be practiced within.
Right. Yeah, and I heard you say, I had the honor and pleasure and privilege of being in Greg's class a couple days this week, and I heard you saying, slow down, there's really no benefit to rushing, only the risk of injury. And it's a good reminder just to be mindful, take it slow. It's the one opportunity to do that in your day. Because the rest of the day, once you step off your yoga mat, it becomes a whirlpool. So you can take the lessons with you off your mat into your day.
Yeah. For me, I go through my practice, and it takes about 90 minutes every day, and I kind of make a deal with myself. I say, how long can I go through my practice before my first stray thought comes in?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So can I get...
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Can I focus on my body? Can I keep my breath steady and all these kinds of things? And how long before I'm thinking about something else that I want to do later, or, anything else, whatever stray thought comes in. And some days it's straight away.
Right.
And some days, it's a little longer.
So when you're doing it, the breath let's say that you're doing it, and some of these poses are hard, so you can lose your breath, or you lose your
For sure.
Yeah. So the key is to keep your breath first, right? Yeah.
So yeah, there's these three techniques: the mindfulness, the breath, and the physical posture. And there are times the poses can be so physically challenging, and the movements can be pretty intense, where those three techniques seem in conflict with each other. And to me, the practice is actually about bringing those techniques into balance with each other.
Right.
That's really what the practice is.
So one thing I'll comment on, and I know probably some of our listeners hear 90 minutes. Oof. There's no way I've got 90 minutes to do yoga or to exercise, period, whatever it is.
Yeah.
What do you say to those people?
Do what you can. You know, that's what I mean. It's meant to be practiced in a very individual way, and it's meant to be learned gradually. So start out with 10 minutes, you know, whatever you can break in your day. And what I tend to find is if you can find 10 minutes for yourself in a day, that you'll want 15.
Yeah.
If you can find 15 minutes for a day. And, you know, what I also find is that if we get healthier in our body and we get healthier in our mind, we also get more efficient in our life, and we find that we actually do have more time.
No, you
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
And it becomes a priority, and
It
you make
becomes
the
a priority.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, because the rest of your life's going better.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, you wake up, you do it stronger, you do better.
It's true. I think maybe in the beginning, for many people, yoga may start with just that physical drive, you know, but hopefully they're getting the deeper lessons eventually. And one of the analogies I like to, or I hear people say all the time is, yoga becomes a way of living. And that you take those lessons with you off your yoga mat, to be patient, to be mindful, to listen to your body, you know, and take time for your health every day. It's what this show is all about.
Oh, yeah. No, it totally does. You know, I felt I was so lucky because when you had opened that first studio, my
past life.
no, but that was the first thing I ever did was a stronger yoga. So I can't even understand the context of when they do something else because I know I'm so prejudiced to the deal.
Right.
I am too. And I just am. I mean, because you know, I know what the difference is. And you know what I figured out the other night? So at lunchtime, I'll do power yoga. So that's an hour. And I figured it out. No, this is funny because I said, you know, no wonder why this is so easy compared to when you were first open. No, exactly, because that was the whole hour and a half. Do you know what I mean? Versus, I says, okay, I kind of get the gist of it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with Ashtanga, people who are curious, even for people who are practicing yoga now but who haven't experienced Ashtanga, what would you say would be a good way for them to get started? What's the best thing to do, first step?
I think if you can find yourself a good Mysore style class, it really is the best way to learn.
Mysore style.
Yeah, so
explain that.
There's two ways to learn. Mysore is the city in India where the system originated. And so the way that it was traditionally taught was teacher to student. In relationship with your teacher, they give you a very short practice, and you build on a couple of poses every day until you get to your limit. And so it's very individualized. My first class, and what's become popular in the West, is these 90-minute guided classes where you do the whole sequence of poses all at once, no matter what level you are. And I remember my first Ashtanga class, walking in, and after about 20 minutes feeling like I was going to pass out because it was hot, it was intense, and I looked at the clock and I had another hour and 10 minutes left, and I was like, you've got to be kidding me, you know?
They shouldn't have clocks in there.
Yeah, right?
Totally.
So Mysore style is where you've got a room full of people, and the teacher's working with each one as an individual. And then you memorize the sequence of poses. So actually, as you get more advanced, you also get more independent in your practice. And the teacher can work with everybody kind of where they need. And instead of looking outside of yourself, towards the teacher, towards the other classmates, you're much more focused in your own practice.
Yeah.
So it's just a really nice way to learn, and it is the traditional way of learning.
Yeah, and I'll agree with you is that Mysore style, while some people don't recognize the name or understand what it means, can be very intimidating. The name.
Yeah.
But just go. If you're curious at all, just go, because it's like getting a private lesson in a group full of people. It's a really lovely experience.
That is, no, and I haven't done that yet, and I have to do that.
You got to do it.
No, because so check this out.
I'm here tomorrow. You come.
Hey, that's a good thing. No, and it's because one of the main reasons I wasn't there is like I don't understand. I can't go to a whole class because I'm not going to know what to do. I didn't realize that it's individual how you do one pose at a time and get that right?
Yeah, I think a lot of people do expect that they should know something, but I think it's best to show up knowing nothing and just be open to the lessons.
And your practice may be a little short in the beginning, but it's meant to be that way. It's meant to be learned very gradually.
Right. We're going to come right back with more from Greg Nardi, so stay tuned. Do not go anywhere. We're going to hear more about his background and his story and what brought him to this fabulous practice.
You take a hands-on approach to managing your investment strategy. You're always looking for the next trading opportunity to magnify your perspective. Direction Shares connects sophisticated traders with a powerful array of ETFs from a wide range of asset classes. The markets may go up and down, and you want tools for both sides of the trade. Discover how we can help at DirectionShares.com today. An investor should consider the investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses of the Direction Shares carefully before investing. The prospectus and summary prospectus contain this and other information about Direction Shares. To obtain a prospectus or summary prospectus, please contact Direction Shares at 800-851-0511. The prospectus or summary prospectus should be read carefully before investing. An investment in the funds is subject to risk, including the possible loss of principal. Funds are designed to be utilized only by sophisticated investors such as traders and active investors employing dynamic strategies. Investors in the fund should understand the consequences of seeking daily investment results, understand the risk of shorting, and intend to actively monitor and manage their investments. Distributor Foresight Fund Services, LLC.
Who says you can't take it with you? TFNN says you can. With your mobile device and TFNN's live radio streams, TFNN has put it all in the palm of your hands. No special apps to download. No subscription fees for live radio or Tiger TV streams. We say you can.
Now let's go over to the dollar, because the dollar is going to be the generator. It is the generator of basically higher dollar, lower market. And what the dollar has done, and this whole uptrend, folks, has just gone sideways. The way it works, folks, is this.
We say you can. The Tiger Financial News Network. Smart investors and professional traders know you can. TFNN.com. Educating investors. Life is a mystery to be lived, not a problem to be solved. Mindful Living with Allie Ford and Tom O'Brien.
Sometimes I get a good feeling, yeah.
Welcome back, folks. We're here with Greg Nardi, international yoga teacher and expert. And actually, just before we go any further, how does that's got a nice ring to it. International yoga teacher. Did you ever imagine this? You'd be doing this? Was this a long-term goal of yours?
To teach internationally.
To teach yoga and travel the world teaching
not
yoga.
At all. I was, young white kid, grew up in the suburbs of New Jersey, and I'm like, sometimes like, how did I end up with this Indian guru and like, traveling around the world teaching yoga? It was the farthest thing from what I expected for my life.
How did you end up? What took you to yoga?
It's a good question. Honestly, like the real true answer is I feel like yoga saved my life, like in a very real way. It was just a real powerful healing for me. But what got me to my first class, a friend of mine, we had taken like a dance class once before, and we just laughed through the whole thing and had such a good time. And she's like, come take a yoga class. My massage therapist told me to take this class, and I need somebody to go with me. And I thought we would just laugh and have a good time.
Yes.
And it would like hit me like a bolt of lightning on that first class. I was like, I need more of this. I don't know what it is, but I need more of it.
That's it. I can relate. I sure know many people listening to this right now can relate to that. Just feeling it right away.
There's no doubt. Everyone out there, you just got to go do it, because that's exactly what happened to me. No, it's the same thing. You looked in, and then you do it. Just say, whatever it is, it's great.
Right.
That's right.
Whatever it is, it's great. Period.
Yeah. By the way, folks, if you have questions for Greg, don't forget we've got a 5-class pass to give away for White Orchid Yoga here in Clearwater. Call us at 877-927-6648. So, you went to that first class. Mm-hmm. It swept you up.
That's right.
And then how did you make your way to India?
Okay, so at that stage I was 22 years old, and like I said, I lived in a suburb outside of New York City, in New Jersey, and just I didn't know. I just thought all yoga was the same. It was at a place called the New Jersey School of Massage, so it wasn't even a yoga studio. There wasn't very much yoga at that time. And I, just fell in love with it so much that I wanted to start, taking as many classes and as much as I possibly could. And I started going around into Manhattan. Luckily, I was close enough to New York City, and Jiva Mukti was starting to pop back then, and some yoga was starting to become popular, but it was still kind of underground and edgy. And it was such a for me, I grew up and I was I was asthmatic, and so I was sick as a kid, and I never felt comfortable in my body. Doctors told me, yes, you can do whatever you want, but I was constantly medicated. Every time I did something physical, it didn't feel right to me. Or I had an asthma attack, and it was very embarrassing to me, and this kind of stuff. And yoga was the first thing that I could do that felt good in my body.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh man, you got
awesome.
that. And folks, if you see his videos and see what he can do now, that's unbelievable. No, it really is. That is so cool. And so, how long did that take? Well, that you saw what that difference was?
Right away. I mean, really right away. I was also, I guess kind of as a teenager rebelling against a lot of things and stuff like that. So I wasn't
just like every teenager.
Yeah, exactly.
Out of our minds.
Wasn't taking care of myself.
Oh, you weren't, right? No, you weren't.
I plead the fifth.
Just me and Greg. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. And I wasn't taking care of myself and things like that. And right away, I knew this felt great. And here's the thing: is I didn't have to make choices about living a healthier lifestyle. I felt so good that I just didn't want to do anything that would bring me down.
Yes.
And I knew if I eat certain foods, if I do certain things, that it was going to make me feel worse than I felt right now.
Yes.
And I didn't want to have anything to do with it. And so it was like very natural. I started to practice. I mean, I was a little crazy at first, a little extreme about it. I used to practice like 5 or 6 hours a day. I was walking back and forth to the studio every day. I became a vegan and all these different things.
Yes.
And I just felt great
That's
all
awesome.
the time.
Yeah. No.
So I would say the
listening to your body.
first 3 months were like super intense purification, and then it kind of leveled out.
Thankfully.
No,
Thankfully. Yeah.
Well, when that happens, though, it's dynamite. I mean, because when you can do something and it's just normal, and
Or that you're passionate about.
Yeah, and you're not thinking about, I want to go do something else. That's a whole different ballgame.
That's right.
It
wasn't a chore.
Yeah.
It wasn't a chore at all. It was just like I couldn't get enough of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you made your way to study in Mysore.
So I was doing that. That was my first year. I started studying, and I started to realize, I started to learn what was what. What were the different types of yoga. There's so many brands of yoga out there now. And this sort of moving meditation, this vinyasa style it's called, where it's a breathing movement system. The first time I took a class like that, I walked out of there and I felt like I was flying, like I was walking on air. I was actually at Jiva Mukti on 2nd Avenue in New York City.
That's a yoga studio in New York City.
Yoga studio in New York City. And Sharon Gannon, who's the founder of that center, it was the first time I had taken a class where somebody gave me a full-on body adjustment.
Oh, wow.
In a forward bend, she kind of squished me flat, and I was moving, and I walked out of there like on an endorphin rush, just flying high. And it's like, whatever that is, I want it.
Right.
And I looked, and they had a picture of this old Indian guy on the wall. So I was like, well, that must be the real deal. So I sought out a student in his style, which was called Ashtanga Yoga, as we've been saying. And I went to the class, I started practicing, and the teacher said, you should go to India. And I said, I will one day. I thought this is, again, I had never traveled before in my life. I was young. I thought I'll go one day as a pilgrimage. He goes, no, you should go now.
Wow.
I said, okay. So I saved my money and I bought a ticket. And he never said another word to me about it again. He gave me the address of the teacher in India, of Patabi Joyce. I had a plane ticket, and I got off the plane in India, and I just started showing this piece of paper around. Where's the yoga guru? Where's the yoga guru? Like this. And, they don't have street signs. They don't have anything. So I ended up in this neighborhood knocking on doors, like, are you the yoga guru? Are you the yoga guru? And people were like, oh, go down there, go down there. And I walk in. I finally find the right door, and Patabi Joyce used to hold a conference every day where we could all go and ask him questions. And he was there for the conference, but I was early. There was nobody there yet. So I just walk in, and he was expecting people to be walking in. So I'm like, just had come across the world and had been through this big odyssey, and I'm like waiting to touch the master's feet, and he goes, "Oh, yes, you come in, you sit down," you know, and I was like, it was so casual, you know, it was so just like normal, and I couldn't believe it. And he had that sort of ability to teach you this incredibly profound, transformative practice, and at the same time keep you very grounded, keep it very real, you know, because we all tend to go off in flights of fancy about what this can all mean and all this stuff, and he just had a way of just making it very, very real, you know, super cool. And right then I knew, you know, like, oh, okay, this is not something you do once as a pilgrimage.
Yeah,
when you meet your
Yes,
teacher,
right.
you know,
Right.
and so I committed to coming back. You know, I tried to go back every year or every other year, something like that.
And so at that point, you knew you wanted to teach, or no?
Well, I was already teaching.
Okay.
I had been
So, yes.
teaching back in New Jersey, and I had a small group of students, and when I got there, I realized that I took it way more seriously. Like in India, they expect you to, you know, have finished the advanced series, be practicing for X amount of years, make a number of pilgrimages to India, and all this stuff that I did not have.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh my gosh. And so, you know, I asked him about it, and he was just super cool. You know, I said, I got these students, you know, like, I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to be teaching, but I've got students and they're benefiting from it. You know, what should I do?
Right.
And he was like, just teach what you know.
Yeah.
You know, like, just really, like, you know, and that kind of guided me over the years. I thought that was the best advice I ever got, because sometimes when we start teaching, we get this pressure to, like, have all the answers.
Yeah.
You know, people think, oh, you practice yoga, therefore
Yes.
you're never supposed to get sick, or you're never supposed to be in a bad mood. You know, and it gave me permission to sort of say, I don't know sometimes,
That's
or
not reality,
I'm not
yeah.
done yet.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
like, I'm still learning myself. I'm still a student myself.
Sure.
Right.
And it kind of guided me and kept me humble throughout the whole thing.
That's such a huge lesson to stay
What a
humble.
Huge lesson.
Yeah. Well, what have you seen from, you know, the beginning of yoga, the middle of yoga, and today?
The beginning
yourself.
of my own practice? Oh,
Yeah.
in myself. Okay.
And I guess more so in your head. You know, your body's phenomenal. In your head, and
Yeah, it's a great question. I was 22 when I started, and I was really looking for an alternative. You know, I had sort of grown up with a certain identity and a certain idea about what was expected of me as I got older. I thought I had to get a job, I had to go to school, and that just wasn't working for me.
Right.
So, you know, I just felt like there's more to life than this, you know, but nobody was letting me in on the secret. I was waiting for somebody to tap me and say,
I think
you know,
everyone does.
here's the meaning of life.
Like what's it all about? Right.
Totally, and I wasn't getting it. I was very dissatisfied, and so when I found yoga, I think it kind of fulfilled some of that. I was like, okay, I don't know the meaning of life, but I feel like this is heading me there. You know, this is putting me in the right direction. But I think being so young at that time, I just felt if I worked hard enough, if I pushed myself hard enough, that I would get enlightened, whatever that means.
Sure. Right.
And I kind of put myself through the ringer trying to get there.
Nice.
You know, and I think that what I've realized over time, the biggest thing that I've realized is, you know, enlightenment or happiness doesn't exist anywhere else but right here, right now, right inside of ourselves.
Right.
So it's much more about learning how to be mindful, how to connect with people, how to be a good person, how to have integrity. You know, it's less, you know, yoga's not about adopting an identity, putting on a mala bead and wearing flowy clothes or anything like that. It's about being more authentically who you are.
No, you know it's so cool. No, you're right, because when you always bring out, Ali's always bringing out the gratitude, the humbleness, right? And there's no doubt, and it's so cool because that's such a peaceful feeling. And then we know we're all one, so there's not, you know, this big deal that you have to do anything. You know, if someone is even putting something on you like, hey, you know, you got to do this, I'm like, why? You know, I mean, it's really intriguing to me because I think you just get more centered. I found myself getting much more centered, and I like it. I love it. You know?
You just said that so eloquently and so beautifully. I mean, those are the deepest lessons that are ultimately available to all of us through this practice. You know, this is so comes so full circle, this conversation, serendipitously perfect, in my opinion. But, you know, how we talked about you may come to this physically, and it may be somewhat of a surface type of thing. We're experiencing the benefits of physical, oh, my body's changing, I'm feeling healthier, I'm feeling better. That it could eventually become this way of living, being humble, you know, always open-minded with an open heart, connecting with others, as you said, which then informs a selfless way of being. That's just beautiful. That's the potential.
You know, I think that when you feel good about who you are, it's very easy to be generous of spirit. You know what I mean? Like, when you don't feel threatened, when you don't feel like you have so much to prove and all this kind of stuff, you know, you really just know yourself.
Yeah.
And you can operate in the world in a way that is of much more service to other people.
Yeah, and it feels good.
It feels good.
It feels authentic.
That's right.
Good.
It's just such
It's
a load
good
off,
feeling.
you know? Get rid of all your baggage.
You know, and so picture 2013. We're in 2000, and you're here now. I mean, with every widget we have, everyone's all our problems are no one's here now.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
You know what's happening. Is it the phone? Is it the computer? Is it what is it? And being here now is the name of the game, because that brings everyone down. Whether they do yoga or not, if they're here now, they get peaceful.
Yeah. Be more mindful.
Mindful.
And present.
Big time.
Yeah. And we talked so much about that in our last show, meditation. And, you know, it's so many, I'm seeing or reading scholars or scientists giving this mindfulness movement, and it is a national movement, worldwide movement, this mindfulness movement, credit to other schools of thought, when really yoga was the first mindfulness movement. I mean, as far back as we know, right? If you date back to the ancient yogic texts, which are date back to what, 3,500 years, 1,500 BC, somewhere around there that we know of.
Sure. So the Vedas, right? That's what we're talking about, the Upanishads, and they actually didn't really use the word yoga very often. There came this time where the Bhagavad Gita, the times of the Buddha, and these kinds of things, where this word yoga really started to become used more often, and this is the sort of genesis of the mindfulness practice. But the roots of it certainly go back, you know, to these much older texts.
Right. Which I just have to say, that's so cool, because these are the oldest written texts known to mankind.
They were orally transmitted. Yeah.
Really? Wow.
So it was all
gave rise
memorized.
to
That's
this
even
practice.
crazier,
No,
right?
and that
It's all
totally makes sense. It would have to be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And actually, because it is an oral tradition, they believe that has something to do with the mental training involved in mindfulness practice. Because can you imagine, in order to be able to memorize and transmit these texts to each other, how strong your mind would have to be, right? And so there's a rigorous mental training that was involved in being able to recite these texts. So then, you know, this word Ashtanga that we have, what it literally means is 8 limbs, right? And so what a lot of people don't realize is it's an 8-step process.
Okay.
And the physical asana practice is really the third of the 8 limbs. And so beyond that, we have much, more subtle techniques. We have a breathing technique, and we have a way of concentrating the mind. And meditation is the penultimate limb. It's the 7th limb of Ashtanga Yoga. So meditation is actually a part of the yoga system.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's the 7th. That's pretty cool, though.
The 7th,
Yeah.
yeah.
I like that.
Because you have to refine higher states of mind to
And
ultimately
the question
be
is,
able
what's
to...
the 8th?
Right. We're all trying to figure that out.
Did they tell you what the 8th is? What is the 8th?
Yeah, it's a state of it's a state called samadhi, which they say is simply the ability to see things as they truly are.
Right.
So the idea is that all of us, as we're looking out into the world, you know, we think we're seeing things as they are, but we're really filtering it through of all our past experiences and all our likes and our dislikes and this type of thing. And so when we can quiet the mind through meditation, what happens is all those filters go away, and we can perceive reality as it is.
Oh, so let's talk about that for a second.
No.
Yeah,
Do we have time for that?
Because reality, okay, so we talk about the mind. That first off, where's the mind? And reality is that, okay, are we all in one mind? And is this reality? Or what is it? Right? Because I go through this in my head like way too many times. No, I'm not kidding. Because I look and I say to myself, hold it. Is my mind here? Where's my mind? Is this all our mind, and we're all getting one energy? And you know, I feel that more than anything. That's kind of where my head's at.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That there's some, because there's too many things that happen in life that those connections you can they're there. And the more that you pay attention to them, the more that they're there, and the more that they're quicker. You know, and so that one is a good one.
That's a good one.
Oh, it is a good one.
You know,
well, I'll be working on that forever.
That question of where the mind is, that's a tough one, right? Because right now we're trying to explain everything through the brain, which I think is great. But, you know, we would typically say in Eastern philosophy that the physical matter of the body is only one layer of who we are.
Okay.
Right? So there's the physical matter of the brain, which is perhaps the instrument through which the mind expresses itself. But we haven't really been able to pinpoint anything that we say that's the mind. Right?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Right, so we have to kind of think to ourselves then all of the instruments through which our eyes, our ears, our nose, our mouth, all the instruments through which we experience reality, you know, are simply the ways through which the mind can see the world. But every one of them is limited.
Yes.
You know, think about your eyes. They can only see a certain spectrum of light, but we know there's more to that.
Right.
Think about your ears and the frequencies of sound that we could pick up, but we know there's more than that. So we know. It's not a very difficult thought experiment to say to ourselves, there's a lot more to reality than what we're able to perceive with our limited senses.
Right.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You know what's amazing? And folks, I got to tell you what's amazing here is this. Is that Allie, Greg, I called Allie earlier today, and I'm saying, okay, you know, we're going to talk for an hour, okay? And they both, their communication skills are so amazing. No, I'm not kidding. And it's so cool. No, it's so cool talking to you because you've been doing it for so long, and coming on this side of it, hearing it, is amazing because you know you like it. But when you connect it, like both of you do connect it, it's a whole different being. Because I said to Allie earlier, I said, okay, I get it. I get the whole deal. No, seriously.
Yeah,
do you know what
I know. You did say that.
Because I really wanted to understand, you know, okay, where are we going to go with the whole thing? And it's amazing. Because, you know, we just went from, like working out to life. No, seriously. And that's the name of the game.
Yeah.
Because then you're all set doing anything and everything you want.
Right.
Everything.
And I will say it's definitely a gift that you have, Greg, as a teacher. If you have an opportunity to study with Greg, check out his website, AshtangAYogaWorldwide.com, because we're talking about such a rich and vast philosophy and science of yoga. Again, which many people think is just a physical workout, and if that's all you get, fine. But there is so much more available to us, and but you have a knack for really bringing this rich information, you know, to a relatable level. So I really appreciate that. I'd love to know now in your present day teaching, what would you say your teaching philosophy is?
Oh gosh.
I would say I watch you teach. You're gentle. You're therapeutic. You're knowledgeable, relatable. How do you keep all that fresh? How do you keep your passion?
I don't think it's really that hard, actually, because even, you know, so what I've come to understand is that the practice is simply a tool. It's the platform that I use to connect with people. And so that's all it is once I connect into this person, I say, what do they need? What is it that's going to be, you know, bring out their most optimal being? You know, it just comes spontaneously.
It's a beautiful thing.
So beautiful. Thanks for joining us, folks. And Greg, thank you so much for being here. It's been a real pleasure.
Thanks, Greg.
Tune in next week when we talk about acupuncture.